This is why I am so excited about the next few months for Bitcoin and why I am personally very confident, 90% confident, that we are in an extended uptrend, a breakout move that's going to bring us to new all-time highs that we haven't seen ever before in Bitcoin's life. I feel confident that we are in the process of putting in another big leg up for Bitcoin. I'm talking about this kind of a leg up for Bitcoin. I'm going to show you the global M2 money supply as it correlates and predicts the Bitcoin price. And I'm going to show you something very interesting about the Tether dominance chart and how we can use it to not only confirm that we are indeed in another leg up for Bitcoin, a big move up, but also we can use this as a clue to spot when the Bitcoin top might be in for this next leg up. And all of these charts are all telling me the same thing, and I'm going to show you why. Let's start off with the global M2 money supply. This is a very popular chart, and I've updated it, and I'm going to continue updating this. If you're not tracking with what this is talking about, I recommend watching some of my past videos where I go in great depth. I've recorded that already in those videos, so I encourage you to watch those. Real briefly, this is showing the global M2 money supply of many major countries around the world, collectively aggregated into this yellow line. We have the Bitcoin price line as the orange line. And what we've done is shifted forward this global M2 money supply line by, in this case, 80 days to see where the best fit is, both mathematically as per this correlation table, which is actually running a math function on the two charts to see how similar are they. And then also just visually, using our eyes, looking at this and just take a look and see if it looks aligned. So I would say it looks pretty good right now. I always try to make sure the most recent moves align correctly. As we've discussed, the offset itself shifts over time. So not long ago, it was 108. More recently, it was 84. Now it seems to be spot on around 80. As you can see how tightly this is following right here since April 7th. So for the past 20 days, we've had a very, very tight correlation with an 80-day offset of the M2 money supply. So basically, the theory is that countries around the world print money and it trickles down to the point where it can finally buy Bitcoin. And due to the differences in the countries and the time it takes to trickle down and find its way into Bitcoin, as well as the difference in some of the countries having accessibility to Bitcoin, that total movement of the economic organism, that's how I like to visualize it, this energy of money flowing from the printers of all the countries that just love to print, can't get their grubby mitts off those printers, to the point where that money ends up in Bitcoin takes, in this case, an average of about 80 days. But this does shift. And I made a video on explaining exactly how this all works. So again, watch my past videos. So I've taken a look at it right now. And as it stands, I feel confident that we are at a 80-day offset. But we're not going to get too caught up in the weeds. I noticed a tendency to do that, and I myself am probably guilty for that because I made a big emphasis on the changing offsets and the different offsets and this and that. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal. The big picture takeaway is that, in a range between 70 and 110 days, that seems to be where it fluctuates between, the shifted forward global M2 money supply line basically tells us in advance, in this case, 80 days in advance, what the Bitcoin price is going to be doing. I know it sounds crazy, but it has allowed us to predict accurately Bitcoin's moves really since February. And so here we are 2 months later, and like clockwork, Bitcoin is now in the process, in the midst of making its next leg up. And I can tell you confidently, based on this chart and the next two charts that I'm going to show you, that we are indeed in the middle of another leg up for Bitcoin. And this is not just a little move up. This is going to be a big move up. This is a move that's not apparently stopping until July 18th at this point. There's some sideways movements where people are going to think we topped out, and then I think it's going to keep going. But there's a month here from May 24th to June 18th, where it looks like we're going to go sideways, maybe a big drop right here that scares everybody when that happens. And then lo and behold, what do we have? Another huge move up. So this is beautiful. It continues to be beautiful. And I'm going to continue to follow this. And I've created a script. I'll share the link in the description below where you can add this script to add this global M2 money supply line to your very own TradingView chart. You just add it to the Pine editor down here. You copy and paste it and you put it down here. And this is the script itself, okay? Now, why am I so confident that we are in the middle of another leg up? Well, the global M2 line itself is pretty compelling, to be honest. But let's add to it because I think it's important not to put all one's eggs in the same basket. I think it's good to diversify metrics, diversify opinions, to get a broad look at the landscape and not hyper-focus on one thing because one thing could be wrong. And then if you put your full bet in that one thing, you'll be wrong. So let's take a look at these other things. First of all, let's just take a look at the Bitcoin price chart. Okay, this is going back to February 2024. So we have a year and 2 months of data being displayed here. And this is a beautiful chart. There is nothing that I can say negative about this chart. For the past 2 months, it gave everybody an enormous scare, me included. Like this was a very shaky period because we broke down out of this channel, these two white lines. That was a very nerve-wracking thing. You do not want to see that in a bull run. We had that briefly right here, and that was itself a big scare, August 5th. That was like the Japan yen carry trade, if I recall correctly, that everyone was pinning to this particular collapse. And this was, quote unquote, the end. But then it wicked up and it recovered in 1 day. This was a little more scary because this was a prolonged downtrend out of a channel, broke down, confirmed down, tried to recover, rejected. I mean, it doesn't get more bleak than that. So then at this point, all we had is the support band, this blue rectangle, which is the previous range's top. Now, that's where things started to get optimistic and hopeful because it didn't actually touch that. It got really close, double bottom, tweezer bottomed on these two wicks, and then up we go. That was the start of the hope. But where it really started to get optimistic is the breakout above this yellow diagonal trend line, and then a retesting of it and a bounce. That was huge. But that wasn't huge enough for me to say that we were in a sustained vertical move, a recovery, until we broke through this level right here, 89,000. And really more importantly, I would say about 91,000 here, this line. And not only did we break through 89,000, we broke through both lines. And here we are. Now, why is this so bullish? Because it makes the past 2 months right here basically an entire deviation. This whole period now is just a deviation, an enormous deviation, an enormous fake out below this channel. We're back in the channel. You could almost pretend as if we never left the channel. But the thing is it's actually stronger now. Now that we've reclaimed the channel, that's stronger than having just gone sideways for a long time. That shows bullish momentum kicked in, buyers kicked in, and they weren't willing to let it drop below this range, so much so that it pushed us back all the way into the channel. That's incredibly bullish. So this is my point number 2 for why we are definitely in a move up. I think it's likely we might test this dotted line right here. In the worst case, we'll retest 89,000. I think that's probably unlikely at this point, but it's possible. We'll retest one of these two probably, and then just keep going. I think that honestly by May or the end of May, we will be approaching the tops of this channel again, which is like $105,000. And it's going to keep going from there. This time it's going to break through. Let's look at another chart. Why am I so confident? Let's take a look at another chart. And this takes us to the cherry on top, if you will. The creme de la creme. This is the Tether dominance chart. And I want to give a shout out to Benjamin Cohen of Into the Cryptoverse, who first brought this to my attention. I would not be aware of this if he didn't show this to me. So props goes to him. Also, props to Rao Paul for the global M2 versus Bitcoin charts. He was onto that before I was. I'm not trying to pretend like I invented that because I did not. I just want to make that really clear. But I think it's worth mentioning because sometimes people like to hear that and need to hear that. I'm not trying to take credit for anybody else's work. So Tether dominance, that's the chart here we're looking at. What does it show us? Well, right now it shows us if we line it up with Bitcoin. So on the top we have Bitcoin, on the bottom we have Tether dominance. And these blue arrows I've drawn are every time we've had a Bitcoin top. So you can see they're inversely correlated. When Tether dominance touches this blue trend line, Bitcoin is making a top or a subtop. You can see that right here, corresponds with this blue arrow. Here's two arrows, sort of like double top in this region up here, where it's tapping this blue line down here. And then here's the $69,000 top, corresponding with this blue arrow, where Tether dominance basically or nearly touches this trend line. And then again, we have this first sub peak, $72,000 after a violent move upwards, March 12th, corresponding with Tether dominance touching the blue trend line, and so on. Now, here's an exception. This is where I started to question this metric. I started questioning it because it broke through this diagonal trend line, this blue diagonal trend line. And so I'm thinking, well, this is not reliable. Like, it can't just break through this. I have to throw it out. But I took another look at it, and this is what I figured out. And I'll explain what these white lines are in a second. If you flip this into a log scale, and let me just do some things here with the trend lines. I basically hide them for myself so I can barely see them, but I can bring them back to full color. That's just my way of saving them. I'm going to do that with this one here. There. So now we have two logarithmic parabolic regression lines that touch the tops and the bottoms of this channel all the way back to 2017. It's the same data we just saw, but it's in log format. So now we're looking at Tether dominance in log format. Someone actually recommended switching this to inverted scale, which actually makes it even more clear. Let's do that. So now we've got Tether dominance inverted and in a log scale. And so all the blue arrows correspond to Bitcoin tops. It's much easier to think with it. You don't have to flip it in your head upside down. Basically, every time Tether dominance touches this upper parabolic regression line, that's when Bitcoin is making a price top or a sub-price top. So what's interesting about this is when the Tether price breaks up, well, now it's up out of these sloped white lines, that's the beginning of a giant move up. And you can see, like back in 2021, that was the move from 32,000 up to 69,000, where this blue arrow is. It was when it broke through this line right here. Same for back in 2024, we have this sloped white regression line, and Tether dominance broke through it, tested it once, tested it twice, respected it, and took off. And that was the move in Bitcoin. Let's zoom in on that a little bit here. That was the move in Bitcoin from 68,000 up to 107,000, which is this blue line. So what do we have right now? We have another diagonal trend line that has just been broken. Now, this is not to say it can't be tested again, but it's looking less and less likely as we move on because it's such a steep line. It would have to move a lot to retest it. I don't think it's going to even make it all the way back down, to be honest. I think it's going to just take off, go like this. Here, I'll draw the path I think that it's going to take. I think it's going to basically go like this. Where does that take us? June? Something like that. Basically, this is the Tether, inverted Tether dominance log path that I think is coming. Something like that or something like that. But honestly, if that was going to happen, that means that the Bitcoin price would drop. And I don't see it dropping much more. So I think actually this is the more likely scenario. You get some little piddly drop and then it basically just takes off and keeps going. Now, what's exciting about this is, first of all, it confirms that we've broken out. Tether dominance confirmed the breakout, and just like the prior times, that signaled a huge move up in the Tether dominance as well as the Bitcoin price. So look at, we're already in it. Like, the bottom is in, guys. April 9th, 2025, that was the bottom. That tweezer bottom that I showed you earlier, that was the bottom here. It broke out, confirmation. We are now in an uptrend. And that uptrend won't end until we touch this parabolic line. Now, this is the little cheat here, because when something breaks out, you don't really know how far it's going to go for. Yeah, sure, we have this like upper boundary of 107,000, 109,000 for the previous all-time high. But like once it breaks that, which I feel confident it absolutely will in the coming month or two, where's it going to go from there? How high is it going to go? You have all sorts of price targets, right? But as Tether dominance starts climbing, it's going to approach this blue line. And as it approaches this blue line, that is the signal for at least a local top. If it breaks through this, then this whole chart is scrapped, okay? But it hasn't been broken. In 7 years, in 8 years, this parabola has been respected this whole time, going back all the way. So this will be a first. And I like to assume a trend will continue. I like to assume TA or a pattern will continue until it's proven otherwise. Then I'm willing to change my mind. So not only do we have two things this chart is telling us. A, it tells us we are in a confirmed uptrend that has just begun and has a way to go for Bitcoin. And B, it tells us where the top's going to be. We don't know the price because this is a Tether dominance chart, but we will know the price as Bitcoin's climbing its way up. It's making some moves like this, and it comes down, and then it goes up, and here we are, something like that, whatever it may be, give or take, right? And basically, we'll follow the price up for Bitcoin, and then we'll look at the Tether dominance inverted log chart. And as soon as it touches this line, that's a healthy sign to probably take profits. Like if you're a trader or you're like a, intra-cycle trader, which I don't really recommend, that would probably be your equivalent of this right here, of this price. And then, some bleeding, some dropping, etc. Now, this is fascinating. So this is amazing in itself. It tells us we're broken out, and it tells us where the top might be for that breakout, which is awesome. So, whether it's 130,000, whether it's 150,000, 140,000, I don't know. Something like that probably. But it corroborates with everything else I just showed you. That's the amazing thing. The global M2 money supply line is saying the same thing. It's saying that we're heading up, and we're heading up for another 2+ months. Here we are, April 30th. And so far, the uptrend really hasn't stopped in global M2 until July 17th. So that's April to May, June, July. That's 3 months. That's 3 more months. We've been in it for 20 days, and there's 3 more months to come, barring things like this. So like, for example, when Bitcoin hits this, whatever that price might be, and then it corrects, that's where on Tether dominance, you're going to see it probably bounce off the line. And then it'll come back and retouch it again as it makes another move up like this. Or maybe it doesn't make it all the way. Maybe it stops a little short. Maybe this is, maybe right here, May to June, is the stopping short of this blue line. It fakes us out. It comes down a little bit. And that's the correction right here, the corrective phase. And then it takes off again, and it actually touches this. And that would be right here for that final top. But hey, maybe that's not the final top. Maybe it keeps going. We're going to keep our eye on global M2 because so far the trend has not stopped trending. The trend keeps trending, guys. Instead of the dip keeps dipping, the up keeps upping. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you. This is why I am so excited about the next few months for Bitcoin and why I am personally very confident, 90% confident, that we are in an extended uptrend, a breakout move that's going to bring us to new all-time highs that we haven't seen ever before in Bitcoin's life. And if you're not following me on X, please do. I make posts every day there. You are missing content if you do not follow me on X. My handle is Colin T Crypto. That's Colin with 1 L. Have a great day.